I want to talk about tough conversations and the fact that we really aren't having them much anymore. I want to talk about the basis of having a tough conversation, the ground rules that need to be agreed upon for a tough conversation. Now, this is up for me because I had what really devolved into an argument of personal attacks with a relative of mine, because there were, which is not unusual, no ground rules established, no permission requested. But then again, that's from my perspective, because here are my rules. When I post something on Facebook, and this is collectively understood by the tribes I'm affiliated with, you're expressing an opinion. You're bringing something to people's awareness to consider. You are not inviting a debate unless you post something like, discuss, what do you think? I think there needs to be an invitation. So I posted a gift article, and this relative who didn't agree with it posted a link to a YouTube video that countered the argument. And that's his right, that's fine. I watched it and considered it and conferred with people I respect with regard to the matter. This was supposedly boots on the ground video, people who were there. We're talking about, of course, Gaza right now, and I'm no expert. So I'm going to refrain from going into policy talk because I have no business doing that. However, I came back with some thoughts in response. I allowed myself to get sucked into debate. And at one point, a tome in response was submitted by this relative. I don't know, it must have been 2,000 words. And I just replied, TLDR. Okay, them's fighting letters. I started getting DMs with links. I started getting emails with links. And here's the thing. I don't even have a particularly civil relationship with this person to begin with. There isn't any trust. There's a history of shared trauma. There's definitely trauma bonding. But there's no safety in this relationship. So he didn't know my internal policy of posting on Facebook, if you don't like it, move along, and it's not an invitation for debate. It's just something that resonated with me. And I pushed back. I don't remember exactly what I said, but basically I said, stop it. Replying to the post with a link is fine, but don't start DMing me. Don't start emailing me, because that infers a conversation. And just sending people links and articles is not a conversation. Unspoken was, and you and I really don't have the tools to have a conversation, because we both know there's not going to be an agreement on the ground rules. Now, maybe there could have been. I don't know. Maybe there still could be. I know I didn't have the tools to have the conversation. And not surprisingly, this relative took it very personally and made it very personal. Referred to an opinion I had or something I had shared as garbage, and how I should expect reactions when I post garbage. Now, so the assumption on his end is his point of view is empirical fact. And he may find some evidence to prove it, but then again, it's complicated. There is evidence on both sides of every issue, for the most part. You know, some fundamental things you can agree on. Hamas wants to destroy Israel. Hamas is indoctrinating children to continue to hate Jews and want to kill Jews. Sadly, that's not going to stop. So, do you obliterate the people that may be affiliated with Hamas, or among whom Hamas is hiding, whatever? Annihilation never works. You can't annihilate another population. And the same holds for a conversation. You cannot have a conversation if your intention is to annihilate the other person and denigrate their point of view and refuse to consider their point of view in any way and force your perspective down their throat. And unfortunately, social media, AI, all of this has exacerbated our inability as people to have difficult conversations. I'm very grateful that I have a son with whom I can have difficult conversations. He did not grow up with the sort of damage inflicted on him that this relative and myself had. He has tools. And he also has a far more extreme view on politics. He is much further left than me. And it has been a challenge, but we have learned to hear each other. We will request sources from one another and give each other time to supply these sources. So there is a ground rule there. I haven't spelled it out, but I think this is an important ground rule to spell out. If you're going to have a difficult conversation, the Imago rules of therapy are really helpful. One person speaks for a designated amount of time until they pass the talking stick. You know, at one point, this relative and myself were in a very difficult situation where we had to live together because we were taking care of someone in their final days, a mutual relative in their final days. And to his credit, he came up with the idea of passing the talking stick. I want to credit him for that. And so you have to agree on something like that, that one person gets to talk until the talking stick is passed. Now, in terms of Imago, the next thing that occurs before the other person yes buts is that they need to reflect back what was said. And not just parroting what was said, although that's a start, but also walking in the shoes of the opinion, and how the other person, you could see how the other person might believe something because of what they've read and seen, without any judgment. Now the problem is you have to get clear with someone on what is a judgment and what is an observation. People will hide behind semantics. There is a difference between an observation and a judgment. Anything qualitative is a judgment. Calling something stupid, garbage, that's a judgment. It's qualitative. So once there's been walking in the shoes of, there can be a request such as, what are 3 ways, or even 2 ways, in which you'd like me to stretch a little bit and maybe investigate your perspective a little more, or support you in some way? And so you may have a suggestion. You may say, I'd love you to watch this documentary, whatever, right? And then there has to be an agreement with an open mind, right? Yeah, I want you to watch this documentary with an open mind, right? There has to be an agreement. Now, then you can switch. Now, in Imago, they say take some time in between, but, you know, realistically speaking, just in terms of establishing policies for conversation, we're talking about a single conversation. Then you switch. The person who has been listening then expresses their point of view until they pass the talking stick. And then again, reflection occurs. Walking in the shoes of occurs. I think, and requesting ways in which to stretch occurs. I think something that I would add that I don't know is included in the Imago therapy conversation, what I would add is, where can we agree? Can we find at least one area of agreement between each other? You may or you may not, I don't know. But I think there needs to be a good faith effort to do so, to find one element of agreement. And then I think it's a great idea to break bread or do something high-spirited. Get high. Have a drink, whatever, high-spirited play. In my opinion, if you cannot establish those ground rules with someone, you're better off not having a conversation around a loaded topic with them. Unless you have mutually agreed to do it in the presence of an objective third party. Right? A therapist, a mediator. Otherwise, all you're doing is indulging in, at best, a negative love language. And I think that's what this relative of mine and myself were engaged in. Trauma bonding, a very negative, reciprocal shaming love language of connection. It's how we can connect. And it's very sad. It's very sad. Because the fact is, underlying that conversation is love. We do love each other. Not everyone is equipped to have a difficult conversation. It doesn't mean you can't love them. It just means you have to know where you end and they begin, and in terms of where they begin, where they are. This is difficult stuff. This is a very difficult practice, and we need to get back to it. These conversations, in my opinion, cannot be had through email. They can't be texted back and forth. Possibly, maybe if you agree to the same ground rules, maybe you could do it through email. I don't know. I haven't tried that. That's possible. You do it all in writing. And that would certainly be an improvement. However, have you noticed how when someone pisses you off, and then you're in their presence, the love comes up. The energy of their presence evokes what you share. That's why conversations like this happening, at least on video, are very useful, especially now. Conversations where there are no algorithms involved. Main thing is that everybody can come back into their own skin feeling whole. To have a difficult conversation, both parties, I believe, have to both agree to do no harm. I'm very curious as to your thoughts on this topic. I'd love you to share stories of difficult conversations that you felt went well. And I'll be back next Thursday.